After 20 years of relative obscurity, the Persona series finally got its big break, with its 5th installment being so popular that there's no denying that the franchise is a bona fide hit. But since most people had never played any of the previous games, seeing as how they're all on dead consoles, all these new fans are fiending for ways to get their grubby little paws on them, and longtime fans seem to want to replay them as well. However, given that there's aspects of classic Persona games that were improved upon in the 5th game, there's actually a good chunk of people who'd rather Atlus just completely remake the first 4 titles altogether, rather than re-release them as untouched HD remasters, and I do kinda understand the logic behind that, but if Atlus were to leave this decision entirely up to me, then I would politely but firmly give them the following response.
Don't do it this. You're home.
Why is that, you ask? Well, sit back in your Pep's favorite chair, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's most problematic meteorologist, Cameron all one word, to tell you why none of the first 4 Persona games need remakes now, or probably ever, really. Alright, so in case you're new here, I just recently made a video about why Nintendo shouldn't remake any old Mario games, and even though some of the points I'm going to be making are still the same with the Persona series, they're actually 2 completely different cans of worms entirely, because unlike the Mario series, where remakes would be at best like 2% better than the originals, or at worst not as good, remakes for Personas 1 through 4 would probably actually be considered better if Atlus were to actually pull the trigger on them. I mean, I know some longtime fans like to think of these games as perfect, but as a Persona fan who only somewhat recently fell in love with the series myself, I can tell you firsthand that after starting with Persona 4 Golden and then moving on to Persona 5, it was pretty rough going back to Persona 3. And I think that a pretty good comparison would be for someone to play a modern Resident Evil game and then go back to the originals with the fixed camera angles and tank controls. I mean, longtime hardcore Resident Evil fans like me might not have a problem with those games, but I still wouldn't recommend them to most people over the remakes. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed Persona 3 quite a bit, and I definitely would recommend it to fans of 4 and 5, but chances are there's gonna be a few things that frustrate the hell out of you. I mean, I hate to be too hard on Persona 3 since this was Atlus's first attempt at adding all the social elements to the franchise, but rather than choosing to enter relationships, it just kinda automatically happens if you spend enough time with somebody. So if you wanna max all the social links out, then you're gonna have to choose the harem route, which basically means you're sprucing everybody in the game, which isn't really a deal breaker, I guess, but it just sucks not having a choice. And even beyond that, there's just not that much to do at night outside of exploring Tartarus. And even when you're inside of Tartarus, all you really do is grind your party up to higher levels, which I personally like doing in RPGs, but the biggest hurdle to overcome when playing Persona 3 last is having your party members get tired from battling and tell you they're going home, which absolutely flabbergasted me the first time I came across this issue in this game. I'm under the impression that this, alongside many other issues like not being able to directly command your party members in battle, were fixed with Persona 3 Portable on the PSP, and I think it's pretty badass that that game added a female protagonist as an option too, but even so, that game also lost a lot of features as well, which is why doing a remaster would be a little bit more complicated than copy and pasting like they did with Persona 4 Golden on Steam. And that's another big reason why a lot of people think that Atlus should just remake this game entirely with the same engine Persona 5 runs on. A lot of fans would probably hate this since it'd make Persona 3 an entirely different game from what they love, and despite what I perceive to be flaws, there's actually a lot of people out there who think 3 is better than 4 and 5, but even though I wouldn't argue with anyone who feels this way, nor would I try to dismiss their opinion as one that's blinded by nostalgia like I would for people who try and tell me with a straight face that Mario Kart 64 is somehow better than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I still feel pretty confident in saying that I personally would probably like a Persona 3 remake much more than the original, and that most of the new Persona fans who've only played the 5th game probably would too. And I suppose a Persona 4 Golden remake could be better than the original as well, but even though some things were improved upon and added in Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, I don't think it's enough to consider 4 harder for fans who've only played the 5th game to get into whatsoever, so more than the rest of the franchise, I think a remake here would be the most unnecessary of them all. However, despite the fact that I do indeed think that Persona 3 would actually benefit a lot from a remake and probably be even better than the original, I'm gonna stand by my opinion that it shouldn't be remade, mainly based on the fact that doing so would probably take the same amount of time, effort, and resources as it would to make Persona 6, so I think it'd be pretty foolish of Atlus to stall that game just to give us something we already have that'd be familiar enough not to feel fresh, while at the same time being fresh enough not to feel as familiar. I mean, it'd be like having a reliable but flawed Dodge that eventually broke down, and spending more money replacing everything inside the car with Ferrari parts than it'd cost to just buy or build a brand new Ferrari from scratch. I mean, sure, the Dodge would run better if you replaced everything with Ferrari parts, I guess, but at that point it wouldn't even be the same car anymore, so people who loved the original would just be sad, and Ferrari lovers might not even get the true experience from the original that fans loved so much to begin with. So if you're gonna go through all the trouble of rebuilding Persona 3 with Persona 5 parts, then why not just make another Persona 5 instead, aka Persona 6? I'm sure people are probably gonna mention remakes for Personas 1, 2, and 2 in the comments, which I haven't touched on yet, mainly due to the fact that I honestly haven't played any of these games for more than like 10 minutes, but I know enough about those games to know that unlike Personas 3 and 4, they're entirely different kinds of games than Persona 5 with none of the social elements whatsoever, which you might say is all the more reason to remake them, and I would personally vote for this if Atlus had to remake Persona games, but if you ask me, See, I think my wacky-ass car analogy applies here even more than it did with Persona 3, since remakes would kinda discredit what the first two games were going for, as if it was some kind of an error not to have social simulation elements. So honestly, I still think Atlus would just be better off putting the same amount of effort towards a brand new game than remaking the first two. I mean, I suppose it'd be an entirely different story if an outside developer showed a promising build to Atlus and offered to do all the work on a remake, but I just don't see that happening, and obviously new fans of Persona 5 and longtime players alike shouldn't have to jump through hoops and spend assloads of money to play the older games, and I think it's hilarious that Atlus is only just now realizing how big the demand for them is after being shocked with how well Persona 4 Golden did on Steam. So hopefully they remaster all the games in the series for PC, PlayStation, the Nintendo Switch, and even the Xbox in the near future, because even though there may be a few things here and there that haven't aged perfectly, I don't think there's any kind of flaws that warrant complete remakes. But anyway, what do you think? Should Atlus remake older Persona games? Should they just remaster them so they could focus on new Persona games? Or should they somehow find a way to remake older games and make new games at the same time? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody at some point. But let me tell you, if there's two people who are so good that they don't need remakes, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Keith McClure and Alyssa Easyvet. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail. Send pictures or videos of you rocking merch if you want to make cameos in my videos, and follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out whenever I play video games sometimes. My name's Cameron, all one word, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.